the chairs of the United Nations Working Group, the chair and members of the National Youth Council, my ministry staff, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, Bula Vinaka, and a very good morning to you all. It is an honor to be here with you all today to officially open the UN Interagency Youth Working Group meeting. It has been conducted in partnership with the Ministry for Youth and Sports and the Fiji Youth Council. At the outset, I wish to express my gratitude to our stakeholders who helped organize this event. I'm also delighted to make a few opening remarks for this Interagency Youth Working Group workshop. First, I would like to thank the UN Resident Coordinator and chairs of the UN Working Group for making this timely event possible. And I would like to thank the Youth Council and their chair for their presence and look forward for their contribution to the exciting program that is mapped out for this workshop. Ladies and gentlemen, in a recent meeting held with the UN Resident Coordinator, an agreement was drawn up to support the Fiji Youth Council in the development of a 6-month coastal action plan that will directly benefit the youth of Fiji. My ministry has its plan in place, which is aligned to the National Development Plan and the Sustainable Development Goals, outlining our goals, objectives, and cross-cutting in almost all areas of the National Development Plan and Sustainable Development Goals, but focus on 4 priority areas. They are: 1, youth education and training; 2, youth employment and poverty reduction; 3, sports, health and well-being; and lastly, good governance. These are our priority areas, and as you will note, the functions of the National Youth Councils are embedded in all 4. This workshop, of course, it must be remembered, comes in the middle of challenging times for all of us. Globally, we have been badly affected by COVID-19 pandemic. And at this point, I must acknowledge the sadness and sorrow it has brought across the world to so many families due to illness and death. Here in Fiji, we have been badly affected in sectors like tourism and health. I know I can stand here and go over all the data and the figures from the pandemic, and we should go over it, and there are many lessons to be learned. However, the pandemic has also enabled us to rethink how do things and how we approach the new and innovative ways. I use the word enable, but it has also forced many of us to rethink how and why approach pathways to move us. I know during discussions through this workshop, you will no doubt have extended discussions along these lines. And I'm also grateful that the program in front of us today has some interesting areas to brainstorm, as well as to provide focus towards meaningful action plans. For this, I acknowledge the input from the UNWG into this program. I would like to start the ball rolling by making few observations on how and why we have changed the focus of our activities in Ministry of Youth and Sports programs. Some of these changes are based on existing policies and work plans. Some have been put into places as a proactive step during the COVID-19 pandemic. For example, Ministry for Youth and Sport has responded to the increasing number of youth returning to their villages and settlements as the job market in urban areas have moved. Most have turned to the land and sea, or both, in order to make ends meet. We know that food security has been a global issue and continues to, regardless of the pandemic. This reality has seen Ministry for Youth and Sports reach out to youth groups by providing materials and means for them to become productive contributors to the national food security. It has also meant that more youth, instead of being aimless, without any prospect in our urban areas, are returning to the land. Ministry for Youth and Sports, in its plan, and the government, in the National Development Planning document, identify food security and the need to have more youth in this sector as a priority area. Over the past decade, the government has invested in Ministry for Youth and Sports program and other incentives in this area. For example, commercial farming education scholarship. The current situation has provided an enabling environment for Ministry for Youth and Sports to provide substantial assistance. Last week we had a similar workshop for 2 days for our 29 assistant youth officers. And the feedback that we got from these 29 assistant youth officers who are based across the country is that, as I had mentioned earlier on, that most of the youth is now returning. And we are committed to our Fijian youth to continue to grow this sector by providing farm implements, access to expert advice, and by monitoring our grants. Ministry for Youth and Sports is committed to creating a structure that will continue to incentivize this sector well beyond the pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, you will see in your program that the workshop focused on the timelines for overview, restructure, and providing thematic development areas for the youth council. I know you will all come up with a meaningful proposal based on these timelines. And I look forward to the reporting on this through your working planning and system thinking that are focused on a 6-month timeline. And before I make some concluding remarks, let me briefly provide some background and the wish list we have at Ministry for Youth and Sports for the National Youth Council. The Council was formed as part of policies on youth development within Ministry for Youth and Sports. The Council was provided with funding and resources towards development works among youth. I'm talking about the old council. This means that the National Youth Council becomes accountable under Ministry for Youth and Sports for funding support and to have alignment with our plan and with that of the NP. The current National Youth Council was reformed after the Ministry for Youth and Sports was not satisfied with the accountability of the past Youth Council, especially in their physical resources. Under the Ministry, our recent efforts have been to register and put in place a systematic manner independent and accessible youth groups across Fiji. This is what I mentioned earlier on about our workshop. We have registered around 360 youth clubs across the country today. And the total membership is around 11,000. And the work is in progress. In the past year, as I mentioned earlier on, We have appointed 29 youth officers, and a good part of their field and outreach work is in this outreach program feeds into your youth network. And as you will know, the National Youth Council forms the efforts for it. The ministry is committed to more research and development work in this area to improve consultation and reporting on this as a means of empowering youth in this process towards a systematic culture of independent youth groups across Fiji. As part of the current plan, Ministry for Youth and Sport is looking at providing the National Youth Council as a model for the other youth groups to follow at the local level. The input of the National Youth Council today will no doubt add greatly to what we can take back to the wider youth population. And helping in providing meaningful delivery of service to create a structured but independent grouping of youth groups. I'd also like to thank the UN Working Group to strongly consider providing Ministry for Youth and Sports funding support towards these goals. Funds are always a challenge, and more so in the current climate. I know that as UN had allied agencies, you have your protocols and funding models in these areas. You have been mandated at a global level for such important and highly valued development. As a government, we are also mandated by the people to also engage in similar development. And this is in the post and current COVID world will require us to rethink our development plan and efforts and our funding models and channels. There are few head of groups. They come and go. But the only structured legal entity as far as youth are concerned is the Fiji Youth Council. The Ministry for Youth and Sport, by being able to access additional lines of funding, can maximize development work in crucial areas like food security, like climate change and resilience building. And in addition to that, we must now work on health and wellness as well, build resilience and create new, healthier living environments, and to learn ways of social interaction and behavior, completely different to the Fijian way of life during this pandemic. I know a lot of Fijians, especially our youth, have had a culture shock, going from our laid-back khaki culture to the norms and health protocols of isolation and social distance. However, as we now know, we have adjusted. And in this adjustment, as noted earlier on, we have been forced to rethink where to concentrate our economic and development efforts. I have recounted earlier, it has been back to basics, back to the grassroots of the Fijian economy, on our land and in our seas. The ministry does grassroots work in these areas and in working with youth groups, including the National Youth Council. I know that the UN interagency also works in a like manner towards the like goals. So in that respect, our roles are complementary. And seeing the workshop here ready to get into gear, we are also supplementary in our efforts to making better future for our youth. And this means that we are a good fit for working closely with the UN agencies on the ground towards mutual goals. I look forward to this workshop providing closer interagency work and a better understanding of the complementary nature of work and roles towards youth development. On that concluding note, allow me to thank the UN reps and the chairs, youth chair, and the National Youth Council for this. And I look forward to seeing the enabling pathways that will lead to a better future for our youth. And that means a better future for all Fijians. Thank you.